Okay, right now we're going to go through lab exercise 2, queries and relationships. So you should have already downloaded the file LX2 from Blackboard, and then we can get started. So it has 4 tables: customer, item, purchase, and zip code. We're going to write some queries around that. So a database query is a way to compile basically all records that match some set of criteria. For example, suppose you have a database full of customers and their purchases. You might want to find either the entire record for a particular customer, found by first and last names, or a list of all customers in a zip code or some set of zip codes, or a list of all items purchased by a customer on a given date, or a list of all items purchased by a customer over a range of dates. Now, there's 2 ways these queries can work. One is when it's all in one table. If everything you need is in one table, the structure is pretty simple. You just go into the design view of the query, you list all the fields that you're going to consider, whether you're going to show them, whether you're not, and then you specify the criteria for each one. And that's all you have to do. But if you're using multiple tables, then the first thing you have to do is build a relationship across tables so that the Access software can understand which fields in table A are related to which fields in another table. Okay, so we'll do some examples. So query 1, entire record for a particular customer named Kevin Smith. So we have a table of customers, you can look at it, scan through and say, there's that Kevin Smith. We're going to find him. Okay, so let's go to do a query. Go to create and then query wizard and then simple query wizard. Ta-da! Now it should already be selected to customer because that's first, but if not, you can use this drop-down menu to pick a different table. So we're going to select all the fields from that. So just use the double arrow to transfer everything from available fields to selected fields. And then next, we're going to pick the detail option so we can edit the form of the query. We're going to do next. We're going to name it customer query 1, and then set the option to modify the query's design. This will launch us straight into the design view. So we can finish, ta-da, and we're in the design view for that, okay? So notice I X'd out the customer table. We didn't need to have that open. Can interfere with stuff. Okay, so our criteria, we want for last name, the text will be Smith, and for first name, the text will be Kevin. Okay, so down here, under the last name field, right, where it lines up with all these criteria fields here, our criteria entries. So under last name, we're going to do equals Smith, and we're using double quotes for that around Smith. Next one, tab to move to the next cell, we're going to use equals Kevin. Okay, and now we just hit the, well, we're in the wrong thing here. Huh? I don't know why we don't have that. There we go. We hit the run button there. And ta-da, we can see we've claimed our Kevin Smith from our table. Okay, so that's the match that our query has found. Next one we're going to do, list of all customer names and zip codes in zip codes 60101 and 60102. Okay, so if a customer exists in those zip codes, we're going to list what the customer's name is and the zip code that that customer is in. So let's get rid of this customer query 1. We're going to save it, and we're going to make a new one. So once again, back to create and query wizard, simple query wizard. Okay, table customer has everything we're going to need. So we're going to add last name and first name and zip code. Okay, we'll go next. Once again, leave it as detail. Edit the name to customer query 2, and then modify the query design. Okay, so once again, launches us into the design view, and we're going to set our criteria. So for last name, we don't have any match criteria there. It's just whatever. So we'll leave that blank. And for zip code, we're going to do an OR statement. So we're going to say equals 60101 or 60102. That means as it's scanning through the list of customer records, if it finds a customer whose zip code is either of 60101 or 60102, it's going to include that record in the matches for the query. Okay, so once again, we can run this. Aha, and look at that. We have several matches from our table, all with the correct zip codes. Okay. Now, if you wanted to, you could go back and cross-check and see that, yep, it's getting the right ones, but we're gonna trust Access at this point. Okay, so close that out, save it. Okay. The next two things we're going to do involve relationships across tables. So we have to first build the relationships. Now, what we mean really with that is that some field in one table is going to represent the same thing as a field in a different table. That's how Access knows, for example, if I find customer here in the purchase, right? So this customer field in the purchase table is an ID number. And if that ID number exists in the customer table where it's a key field, then the software knows, oh, okay, that's the customer that I'm looking for. That customer mentioned in purchase, I can find it here in this other table. Likewise, item, which is equivalent to the ID field in the item table. If I'm scanning through purchases and find that ID number, I can look it up in the item table to find the item's name. Okay. Now, there are different kinds of relationships. If you want to learn some about them, there's a little bit of text in the lab manual, but we're just going to go ahead and get this done. Excuse me. Okay, so scrolling down. So yeah, database tools to relationships. And to start the process, basically you drag the field from one table to the other, and then you set some options and you click create. So we're going to take customer from the purchase table to ID. So drag that link over there and then let it go. See the pop-up window. We're going to click the button for enforce referential integrity. That basically means that any value existing in one table has to exist in the other table. So yeah, what that basically means is you can't have the case, for example, where a purchase record references a customer that does not actually exist. So that's what we're going to do for this exercise. For the homework assignments, you generally don't want to do that. It tends to create more headaches than it's worth for these simple assignments, but in real life, it's generally an appropriate thing to do. Okay, just click create then. Same thing for item and purchase. Click on the item, drag it over to item. Eventually you'll see it change, the cursor change, and then you can let it go. Click enforce referential integrity and create. Now we have our two links there. By the way, the topic up here where it talks about one-to-many, this means this is a number one and this is an infinity symbol. This means that for every entry in customer, right, since ID is a key field, there can be only one in that table, but every entry in that customer table can point to potentially many entries in the purchase table, right? So one customer could have purchased on many different occasions. So that's a classic one-to-many relationship. Comes out a lot in real life. It's pretty typical. Okay, well, there are other options. Okay, so anyway, and there's more text in there. You should probably read it. There's some good information about how not to mess things up on your assignments. Like you don't want to drag in extra copies of tables. It'll just mess things up. Okay, so we're going to run two queries involving data for multiple tables. So the first one, we're going to find a list of all purchase records by Kevin Smith during November 2016. Okay, so close out the relationships window, go to create, go to query wizard, pick simple query wizard, hit OK. All right, we are going to pick some things from the customer table, last name and first name. So let's select those, transfer them over. And then from the purchase table, we are going to select item and purchase date. So item and date and drag them over. Okay, once again, next, leave it as detail, go to modify the query design. And we're going to call this one customer query 3. Okay, and then hit finish, brings us to the design view. So our query criteria, first one for last name is going to be equals Smith, once again with Smith inside quotes. Second one for first name is going to be equals Kevin. For purchase, we're going to put some complex ones in here. I'm actually going to write it up in Notepad and then paste it. I have this other one for the next query. So we're going to do, this will be year, purchase.date equals 2016, and month of purchase.date equals 11. Okay, so the year function is essentially you send it this number, you send it the date of the purchase, and from that it extracts which year the purchase happened in. Same thing, this month function, you send along this date and it extracts what month it is. So here we're saying if the year is 2016 and the month was November, number 11, then we're good to go. So I'm going to just copy that and put it down here, Control V, and do that. Okay, and we can do the query run. Let's see. Yay, we get one match, right? One match from Kevin Smith on November 12th, 2016. He made a purchase. Okay, so if Kevin called up and said, hey, I made a purchase, I don't remember what it was. I think it was in November of 2016. And they said, oh, yeah, okay, well, we found it. That's how that works. Okay, the other option to this, if you wanted to, you could break up the year and month functions separately as query columns. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that, even though you don't, specifically have to. So go back to design view if you want. And I'm going to take out this one. Oh, that date should have been over here. That's okay. That should have been over here. All right, well, I'm just going to get rid of that. Wrong column. Obviously, this should have gone in the date. I'll leave that. Ta-da. That's where that should have gone. Okay. Well, sometimes you get the right results. So I guess that was the only Kevin Smith, perhaps. Kevin Smith purchase. Okay, but if we didn't want to do this one, we could click on the whole column and pick delete, and I could do this. I could do year of purchase date, which I can access because I brought the purchase table into things. Okay, I do that, and I set criteria equals 2016. And for this one, if I wanted to, I could do month. Okay, so the year and the colon before the function, that's just the label of how it's going to appear in the output. The month here, month of purchase date. And once again, let me click that box to display it, and then equals 11. Okay, so if I run this one, then it displays the year and the month when the purchase happened. Okay, so you could break those up either way, gets to the same results. Sometimes you want to separate things. Okay, last one we're going to do, list of all items purchased by Kevin Smith on November 11th and November 12th of 2016. Okay, so close out customer query 3. It's going to ask to save it. We say yes. And go to create and query wizard, simple query wizard. And once again, we're going to select customer.last name and .first name and purchase.item and .date. So customer last name, customer first name, and then we're going to do purchase, item, and date. Okay, and next, going to use detail. We're going to call this customer query 4. Going to modify the query design. Click finish to bring up the design view. Okay, so our fields, our criteria, last name's got to be Smith. Once again, Smith belongs in quotes. First name is going to be Kevin. Purchase date, the year. Okay, so this is what this is, and I just had it in here. So the year of the purchase date is 2016, and the month of it is November. And then I have this other compound OR function to tack onto that. So here I have an OR, which is the day is the 11th, or the day is the 12th. Okay, and this is lifted straight from Access because it tends to generate these square brackets, whether they're strictly needed or not. So what this means is, in order for it to be a match, this has to be true, and this has to be true, and one of these has to be true. So I'm going to just paste that in there. There's the criteria, Control V, and we're going to run it. Aha, and once again, we get the same thing. We have Kevin Smith who purchased something on November 12th, 2016. Success. Okay, so we did some good stuff. We talked about queries within one table. We talked about queries across tables, creating relationships across tables, And besides just doing text matches and number matches, we also talked about how to do date matches. Okay. Well, thank you for your attention. I'll see you some other time. Bye-bye.